All right, let's start here. Minister Patricia de Lille has fired the SA Tourism Board with immediate effect. Her office says this is due to an illegal board meeting, convened earlier this month. De Lille last month warned the board about its failure to follow governance procedures, which she says undermines the board's integrity and could render the meetings procedurally invalid. The board was informed yesterday and was given time to submit written representations on why it should not be dissolved. Well, now the Institute of Directors in South Africa has raised concerns over the dissolution of the board, raising questions about possible interference in its ability to work without fear. The organization's Dr. Simo Lushaba is in studio with us. Good afternoon to you. Almost evening, I suppose it is evening. Thank you so much for joining us. The initial reactions to hearing the news that the Minister of Tourism has decided to dissolve the board of SA Tourism.
Good evening, Naledi, and good evening to the viewers at home. Look, it's quite surprising, although one doesn't have the entire details in terms of what actually happened, but it seems that the minister is saying that the board should not have had a meeting because clause 18.2 of the Tourism Act of 2014 actually gives powers to convene a special board meeting to the chairperson, and the chairperson resigned on the 31st of July. Now, that creates a number of questions, given that stipulation of the Act in terms of the board being able to conduct its duties, because there is no way that the board would be in office and rendered unable to do its work. So also listening to the board members, they saying that this meeting of the 1st of August that they are supposed to have had did not take place. They did a round-robin resolution, which is not a meeting, but it's a circulation of the resolution, and board members unanimously agreed to whatever that resolution was. So it's very disturbing, though, because even if the board had had a meeting, the board has to be functional whilst it is in office, for whatever reason that the meeting was necessary. So it raises a question as to why was then a chairperson not appointed, given the fact that the board has this condition, according to the minister, that they can't meet, have special meetings without them being convened by the chair. I'm also questioning the fact that in the same act, clause 16.2 stipulates that when the chairperson or the deputy chairperson, according to that clause, are not able to attend a meeting, then the board may appoint any other member to chair the meeting of the board, although it doesn't say special meeting, which is where the minister has an issue. But it's not clear if there was a deputy chair or not, and if the deputy chair was there, what was the role of the deputy chair in this whole issue. So it seems to us, though, to be something of form of a substance, because the reasons being advanced have to do with procedural issues of the chair convenes special meetings. But the reality is that the board carries fiduciary responsibilities, and therefore the board should at no stage be inhibited from conducting its fiduciary responsibilities. So in the event that you have a situation where the chair steps down, it therefore suggests that you would then appoint a chair with immediate effect, just like the board was removed with immediate effect. So I question, why was then the chair not appointed with immediate effect? Because it's the 19th when this board is being removed. The chair resigned on the 31st, so you almost 3 weeks down the line still don't have any ability to do special meetings in the board. So whether the board did meet or not, that question would still have to be addressed.
I wonder how you'd go about answering that question, and I know that would be speculative on your part, but I'd be keen to hear what you'd say if I said, well, how would you answer the question as to why a board chair was not appointed after the loss of the chair in July. But maybe we take a few steps back as you really ponder on that. This taking place not long after we've seen the board deciding to suspend the CEO Nombulelo Guliwe.
Yes.
Was that move by the chair, or by the board rather, a move in the right direction for SA Tourism?
Well, I understand there was an investigation report and the board then acted based on that report. But I'm not of any understanding that the board dismissed the CEO. So the norm is after the suspension, there would be then processes that enable the CEO to come and respond and answer. So I do not understand why it would then be problematic, because the board is within its powers. The CEO accounts to the board. So whatever the judgment was, but it has not been questioned in the correspondence from the minister, in the responses, even in the statement that, I mean, in the reasons that were provided for removing the board, this particular development was not actually referred to. But the board is within its powers to suspend the CEO, particularly based on an investigation and a report that it had, although I am not privy to the report, but it's in its judgment.
Yeah, as part of it, though, there is this issue of a 100 million rand tender scandal, right? And I don't want to mention the organization unless, of course, we have the opportunity to speak to them. This 100 million rand tender to look into whether or not this tender was given to a service provider that had the necessary experience to organize big conferences like Meetings Africa and Africa Travel in Durban for 2025. What do you make of that scandal?
Look, it's a serious matter because you would expect that when service providers are appointed, there is a process followed. It evaluated the service provider, and the service provider was fit to carry the responsibility. It seems that the investigation report indicates that there may have been problems. And therefore, if that's the case, someone has to answer for those problems. And if the board decides that the person that needs to answer is the CEO or anybody else involved, I understand there were other people that had already been suspended by the CEO. Prior to that, I just heard on the news now that the CFO and maybe somebody responsible for marketing. But the issue that I also heard from a board member who was interviewed earlier on is that the CEO also suspended the company secretary. Now, that also becomes problematic because the company secretary accounts to the board. It cannot be suspended without concurrence of the board, and the board seems to be indicating. So there seems to be a lot that is happening, and some of it is not yet in the public eye fully, so it's difficult to comment on it, but it does indicate concerning developments here.
What is your view on just over, if you go back maybe 3-4 years, and just some of the changes in leadership that we've seen at SA Tourism, if you have any concerns around the stability within such an important institution that represents us really to the world for the most part? Yeah,
and it seems to be an ongoing trend in that organization. And of course, that then disturbs the entire ability of the organization to meet its mandate, particularly if instability comes right from the top. I mean, what we are talking about now are the key people that are responsible for full and effective control of the organization, the board, the CEO, and everybody else. So it actually creates a very big problem in terms of the stability of the organization that tends to linger on way into the future if not adequately addressed.
Yeah. September's coming up. It's Tourism Month. A lot is expected from the sector in the next few weeks, really. And if you're worried about, all of these shifts that are taking place at the top of SA Tourism being a concern for operationally what we're supposed to be seeing in September, and ideally, what you think needs to be done from the Minister's office and also within SA Tourism to stabilize things.
Look, there has to be very serious decisions taken to look after the interest of the organization. From a governance point of view, the interest of the organization takes precedence. So whether the minister then appoints a new interim board, a new board in full, but there has to be very, very serious steps taken. We also question the issue of succession because when the chair resigns, there has to be a succession plan. In terms of King 4, we've forever been saying that you need to have succession plans for your key role players, the CEO, the chairperson, each member of the board, so that you do not leave the organization in limbo. And it sends a very wrong message, particularly being the face of the country, because SA tourism is at the forefront of why people visit the country and marketing this country and making sure that this important sector is kept at a level that should be attractive to people to visit the country. So we are quite concerned about the stability of the organization and the fact that all of these don't seem to have been in place, succession planning, and then in spite of that not being in place, you leave the organization without a chair for this extended period of time. And then when the board tries to do whatever work that it needs to do, then it gets removed as well for doing that particular work. It does not look well, it does not augur well.
Right, Dr. Simo Lushaba, thank you so much for speaking to us, and we'll be following closely, of course, as these developments continue.